There was a time when American roads echoed with the soft hum of power, when elegance was measured not in speed or silence, but in presence. The 1975 Lincoln Continental Mark IV was born into that golden era, an age where chrome shimmered like jewelry in the sun, where sheer size meant status, and where a luxury car didn't whisper sophistication, it shouted it proudly with every foot of its long, imposing frame. The Mark IV wasn't just a car. It was a declaration. A rolling palace of indulgence, draped in vinyl roofs, adorned with opera windows, and commanding attention with a grille that resembled a fine piece of architecture more than automotive engineering. You didn't drive a Continental Mark IV, you arrived in one. Unveiled in the early 1970s as part of Lincoln's elite personal luxury lineup, the Continental Mark IV was Detroit's answer to the question, how far can we take luxury on four wheels? And in 1975, that answer was bold and unapologetic. With a wheelbase stretching over 120 inches, a hood long enough to host a barbecue, and a cabin wrapped in soft leather and faux wood that would make any lounge proud, the Mark IV was a car that demanded to be noticed and remembered. It was built not for tight corners or racetracks, but for wide boulevards and slow rolls through city centers where its silent confidence spoke louder than any revving engine ever could. Underneath that glamorous skin, the Mark IV carried a 460 cubic inch V8 engine, massive even by 1970 standards, delivering smooth, effortless power that could propel this 2-ton monument forward with grace, if not haste. It was never meant to be quick. It was meant to be commanding. It didn't sprint, it glided. Lincoln engineers tuned the suspension not for agility, but for comfort, absorbing bumps like a luxury yacht slicing through calm water. The ride was supple, soft, and endlessly relaxing, a feeling made even more memorable by the floating sensation of its over-assisted steering and the silence that cloaked the cabin like a velvet curtain. Every drive felt like a slow-motion film where time bent around you and urgency simply didn't exist. But beyond the mechanicals, the 1975 Continental Mark IV reflected something deeper, an entire cultural moment. This was a car for an America that had just stepped off the high of the space race, still riding waves of post-war optimism, yet also inching toward the uncertainties of a changing economic landscape. It was a car built for big dreams, long highways, and the belief that more was always better. From the plush Cartier clock embedded in its dash to the electric windows, seats, mirrors, and even antenna, everything about the Mark IV told you one thing: this is what it means to have arrived. And for a while, the public agreed. The Mark IV was a success, rolling off dealer lots and into the driveways of executives, celebrities, and anyone who wanted to feel like royalty on the road. It was Lincoln's answer to the Cadillac Eldorado and the Chrysler Imperial, and for many, it was the most stylish of the bunch. Its unmistakable profile, with the long hood, short rear deck, and signature spare tire hump on the trunk, became a symbol of 1970s excess in the best possible way. It was the car you saw in music videos, movie scenes, and parked outside posh hotels. It was the embodiment of American opulence, free from the constraints of minimalism or subtlety. But behind the glamour, a storm was brewing. The oil crisis of 1973 had sent gas prices through the roof, and suddenly, the V8 powered giants that once ruled the road were being scrutinized for their thirst. The same qualities that made the Mark IV great, its size, weight, and engine, became its biggest liabilities in a market now obsessed with efficiency and practicality. Imports from Europe and Japan, once scoffed at for being small and underpowered, began to look smarter. Their tight handling, better fuel economy, and compact footprints felt in tune with the times, while American luxury dinosaurs like the Mark IV started to feel outdated. As the 1970s waned, the very definition of luxury began to shift. Leather and chrome gave way to innovation and restraint. Buyers started looking for refinement in ride quality and quietness, not just bulk and flash. The Mark IV, with all its grandeur, began to struggle to stay relevant. Lincoln tried to evolve, but its identity was so deeply tied to the over-the-top luxury of the early decade that by the time the 1980s arrived, the Mark series had lost much of its cultural cachet. The age of personal luxury coupes was slowly fading into the rearview mirror. Yet even as the world changed, the allure of the 1975 Lincoln Continental Mark IV never truly disappeared. Today, it exists as a gleaming time capsule, a reminder of a moment when America aimed high and wide, when car design was about presence, and when engineering followed the mantra of go big or go home. In the collector world, the Mark IV has become something of a niche icon. It's adored not for what it does in terms of performance, but for what it represents, a snapshot of American confidence and craftsmanship before the downsizing era began. It's a car you don't forget. It turns heads, starts conversations, and evokes a sense of nostalgia that only a true classic can. When you see a Mark IV on the road today, it's like watching a piece of art escape from a museum and cruise through modern traffic. It dwarfs most modern vehicles not just in size but in presence. It doesn't apologize for being different, it leans into it. The sharp edges, the immense hood, the bold grille, and that unmistakable rear end, it all comes together in a symphony of 1970s design cues that no longer exist in the modern car world. So, is the 1975 Lincoln Continental Mark IV a timeless classic? The answer isn't just about performance specs or market value. It's about emotion, about memory, about the stories this car holds, and the moments it creates. It's about a time when luxury meant something tangible, something you could see, feel, and even smell in the rich vinyl and velour interiors. It's about the long, quiet drives down tree-lined roads, the way people stare in awe at its massive presence, and the way it makes you feel like you're starring in your own retro film. In a world increasingly obsessed with efficiency, technology, and environmental consciousness, the Mark IV is a glorious reminder of what was. It's not trying to compete with Teslas or BMWs. It doesn't need to. Because while those cars might be smarter or faster, they'll never have the soul, the swagger, or the sheer audacity of the 1975 Lincoln Continental Mark IV. This car isn't just about transportation, it's about transformation. About stepping into a different mindset, a different pace, and a different world. And in that world, luxury wasn't about touchscreen menus or digital dashboards. It was about being wrapped in the cocoon of comfort, cruising in quiet confidence, and owning the road without ever needing to rush. The Mark IV might not fit in today's world, but that's exactly why it matters. Because it reminds us that sometimes, to truly appreciate the future, we need to take a long, smooth ride through the past. In the golden haze of 1970s America, when style was unapologetically extravagant and optimism still lingered in every showroom, the Lincoln Continental Mark IV rose as a symbol of something greater than a car. It was the embodiment of American luxury at its zenith. The Mark IV didn't just compete in the personal luxury segment, it redefined it. Standing bold and broad, with its long hood, upright grille, covered headlights, and signature Continental kit, spare tire hump on the deck lid, the Mark IV was a visual declaration of status and sophistication. Its design language was more than aesthetics. It was Lincoln's statement to the world that America could do luxury better, louder, and with more presence than anyone else. This wasn't subtle elegance. This was rolling art, the kind of car that stopped traffic even when it was parked. Lincoln designers took inspiration from classical architecture, with razor-sharp body lines and a level of ornamentation that bordered on theatrical. But it wasn't gaudy, it was confident. A defining feature of the Mark IV was its opera windows. Small, circular or oval-shaped portals in the rear side roof pillars that seemed to serve no function other than to look exclusive, and they did. Those windows alone became synonymous with 1970s luxury, as much a symbol of elite taste as gold chains or velvet suits. The vinyl roof? A decadent touch meant to suggest that this wasn't just a car, it was a mobile lounge, a penthouse suite on wheels. Every detail of the exterior was dialed to 11, from the padded roof trim to the finely sculpted chrome bumpers. The Mark IV didn't whisper opulence. It announced it with pride. Beneath that polished skin was a machine engineered not for speed, but for serenity. The Mark IV was powered by Ford's mighty 460 cubic inch V8, a power plant that churned out torque like a locomotive, not with aggression but with authority. You didn't feel acceleration, you felt progression. Lincoln's engineering team refined the car's drivetrain to deliver seamless shifts through its 3-speed automatic transmission, and while it wasn't particularly fast by muscle car standards, it didn't need to be. It was smooth, quiet, and endlessly powerful. The suspension was tuned for glide, with soft springs and heavy damping designed to isolate passengers from every ripple in the road. It floated more than it rolled, absorbing imperfections with an indifference that bordered on arrogance. It was a masterclass in comfort engineering. But the Mark IV wasn't just about ride quality. It was also about indulgence through innovation. It offered features that, for the time, were borderline futuristic. Power windows, power locks, power seats, automatic climate control. These were not common luxuries in most vehicles of the day. The stereo system was a statement in itself, with premium sound projection that turned the cabin into a private concert hall. Some trims even came with a factory-installed 8-track player, the peak of in-car audio at the time. And nestled in the dashboard was a Cartier-branded clock, a small but powerful detail that cemented the Mark IV's status as more than just a car. It was a lifestyle. Culturally, the Mark IV tapped into something uniquely American. It wasn't designed for narrow European roads or tight city alleys. It was made for grand American highways, for Sunday cruises with the top down and jazz on the stereo. It became a visual shorthand for success. If you were an athlete, an entertainer, a rising business mogul, or anyone who wanted to project power and taste, the Mark IV was your chariot. It was seen in music videos, in Hollywood films, and most importantly, in the imaginations of millions who aspired to own something that said, "I've made it." This car wasn't just transportation, it was part of the American dream. Climb inside the Mark IV, and the world outside fades away. The interior was a sanctuary, a cocoon of materials that evoked warmth and elegance. Rich leather stretched across the seats, soft and supple to the touch, while simulated wood grain panels glowed softly under cabin lighting, echoing the charm of a private club or executive suite. Chrome accents shimmered at every turn, from door handles to instrument bezels, reflecting light in a way that seemed almost celebratory. Every inch of the cabin was designed with tactile pleasure in mind, from the softly padded dashboard to the thick carpeting underfoot. Sitting in a Mark IV felt like sitting in a velvet-lined throne. And what truly set the Mark IV apart was how it made technology feel like luxury. The power-adjustable seats didn't just move, they glided. The air conditioning didn't just cool, it whispered across the cabin with a hum that was almost therapeutic. Switches and knobs moved with satisfying clicks, and the steering wheel, large and ornately detailed, felt like it belonged more to a captain's yacht than a land vehicle. These weren't just features, they were experiences. They didn't exist to impress a mechanic's checklist. They existed to elevate your journey. Yet, behind the velvet curtains of American luxury, the winds of change were beginning to howl. The energy crisis of the early 1970s, sparked by geopolitical tensions and oil embargoes, caused gasoline prices to spike and fuel availability to plummet. Suddenly, that massive V8 engine, once a badge of honor, became a liability. Fuel economy went from being a footnote to a headline, and the Mark IV, with its appetite for premium unleaded, found itself out of step with the times. What had once been a proud titan of the highway was now seen by some as an inefficient relic. Buyers began to look for alternatives, cars that could offer comfort without the cost at the pump. And those alternatives were arriving. Japan and Europe, once considered minor players in the luxury game, started importing vehicles that challenged the American formula. Brands like Mercedes-Benz, BMW, and Lexus would eventually revolutionize the concept of luxury, focusing on precision engineering, performance, and understated elegance. Their cars were smaller, sharper, and more efficient, and they made American giants like the Mark IV seem clumsy in comparison. Suddenly, luxury wasn't about size or shine, it was about refinement, technology, and intelligent design. The shift wasn't just technological, it was cultural. As the 1980s loomed, American values evolved. Flash gave way to function. Muscle gave way to method. The decline of heavy industry and the rise of a new consumer class meant that aspirations were changing. Where the Mark IV had once symbolized affluence and personal triumph, it now represented a bygone era of excess. Lincoln, along with other American luxury marques, struggled to redefine itself. Downsizing became inevitable. The successors to the Mark IV would be lighter, smaller, and arguably more efficient, but they would never again possess the sheer presence that made the original so legendary. Still, the story of the Mark IV didn't end in obsolescence. It transitioned into legacy. Today, this magnificent cruiser is celebrated by collectors, restoration experts, and classic car enthusiasts who see in it not just nostalgia, but craftsmanship. The Mark IV has aged not as a forgotten dinosaur, but as a classic, an artifact of a time when American cars dreamed big and delivered bigger. Its lines, once seen as extravagant, are now viewed with reverence. Its features, once standard, are now charmingly vintage. And its presence on the road? Still as commanding as ever. Car shows across the country welcome the Mark IV with admiration. Its rarity, especially in pristine condition, gives it an air of mystique. And more than just its design or performance, it's the aura of the car, the feeling it invokes, that draws people in. It's a car that demands to be experienced, not just driven. When it glides by at a parade or rumbles into a meetup, heads turn. Conversations start. Memories are triggered. That's the power of a true classic. In many ways, the Mark IV influenced the evolution of the American luxury car. Even as manufacturers moved toward efficiency, they never fully abandoned the idea of automotive opulence. You can trace the DNA of the Mark IV in today's full-size luxury sedans and SUVs, in their emphasis on comfort, presence, and the idea that luxury should always be felt, not just seen. The Mark IV wasn't the end of something. It was the high water mark, the crescendo before the chorus changed. Ultimately, the 1975 Lincoln Continental Mark IV serves as a beautiful contradiction. It was both the pinnacle and the turning point. A machine that showcased the best of what American luxury could offer, even as the ground beneath it began to shift. It reminds us of an era when we built not just for today, but for dreams. Dreams that took the shape of gleaming chrome, endless hoods, and interiors more luxurious than most living rooms. And that is what makes the Mark IV timeless. Not because it fits into our modern lives, but because it doesn't. It challenges us to remember when cars were more than tools, when they were expressions. When they didn't just take us places but told the world who we were. The Mark IV still does that. Even now. Especially now. So the next time you see one, on the road, at a show, or tucked away in a garage, take a moment. Let it pull you back. Hear the echo of its V8. Feel the weight of its doors. Smell the rich leather. And for a brief moment, remember a time when America wasn't afraid to dream big, cruise slow, and build machines that made you feel like a king. The 1975 Lincoln Continental Mark IV wasn't just a car. It was a crown on wheels. And in many hearts, it still reigns. Today, the Lincoln Continental Mark IV stands not merely as a luxury coupe from the past, but as a living testament to an era when American automotive ambition knew no bounds. It is more than just sheet metal and chrome. It is a symbol of aspiration, elegance, and a uniquely American idea of success. To collectors, the Mark IV is a treasure, a blend of rarity, historical depth, and unmistakable style. Its expansive hood, opera windows, and signature Continental spare tire hump are now icons in their own right. These design cues, once standard bearers of prestige, have transitioned into collectible art. The Mark IV's value in the classic car world continues to climb, not just because of its limited numbers or pristine condition, but because it represents something emotional, something deeply rooted in the American psyche, the promise of the good life, wrapped in leather and chrome, gliding effortlessly down a highway to nowhere in particular. Across garages, car shows, and restoration shops in the United States and beyond, the Mark IV is experiencing a quiet renaissance. Dedicated enthusiasts, many of whom weren't even alive when the Mark IV first rolled off the line, are breathing new life into these elegant cruisers. Restoration projects range from frame-off rebuilds that return the car to showroom perfection, to restaurants that subtly blend old-school style with modern performance and reliability. What drives these efforts is not just a love for the machine, but a reverence for its place in history. Each meticulously restored dashboard, each repolished chrome trim, each final top brought back to its former glory is a salute to a time when the American automobile was not just a means of transportation, but a mobile declaration of status and style. Preservation is more than a technical endeavor, it's a cultural one. The Mark IV isn't just being saved for display, it's being preserved so it can still do what it was built to do, cruise. Whether it's a Sunday drive or a showing at a concours event, every mile rolled under those wide-wall tires is a continuation of a legacy. Owners often speak of the reactions their Mark IVs evoke, people stopping to admire, asking to sit behind the wheel, sharing stories of their father or grandfather owning one. It's in these moments that the Mark IV becomes more than a car. It becomes a bridge between generations, a vessel carrying memories from the past into the present. In a world that moves faster every day, where screens dominate attention and simplicity often gives way to complexity, the Mark IV remains defiantly analog. It's slow, it's smooth, it's unapologetically large. And that's exactly the point. It reminds us that not everything needs to be streamlined or optimized. Some things, like the comfort of a tufted leather seat, the glint of chrome in the sun, the purr of a V8 engine, deserve to be savored. The Lincoln Continental Mark IV may no longer represent the cutting edge of automotive technology, but it continues to symbolize something enduring, timeless beauty, bold individuality, and a lingering whisper of the American dream. It is, in every sense, a rolling monument to a bygone era, an era that still turns heads and stirs hearts, even as the world races ahead.